वासुदेवाय नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayana, unto Naranarayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering up service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, entitled Creation, Chapter 8, Prayers of Queen Kunti and Parikshit, saved, text number 34. Bharavatara nayane bhuvo navo ibo dadho sidantya bhuri bharena jato hi atma bhuvartitah. Bharavatara nayanye bhuvo navo ivo dadho sidantya bhuri bharena jato hi atma bhuvartitah. Bharavatara nayanye bhuvo navo ivo dadho sidantya bhuri bharena jato hi atma bhuvartitah. Bharavatara nayani bhuvo navo ivo dadho Bharavatara nayani bhuvo navo ivo dadho sidantya bhuri bharena jato atma bhuvartitah. Bharavatara nayanye bhuvo navo ivo dadho sidantya bhuri bharena jato hi atma bhuvartitah. Bharavatara nayanye bhuvo navo dadho sidantya bhuri bharena jato hi atma bhuvartitah. Bharavatara nayanye bhuvo navo dadho sidantya bhuri bharena Jato hi atma bhuvartitaha. Synonyms: Bhara avatara nayanye. Bhara avatara nyaya. Just to reduce the burden to the world. Anye, others. Bhuvaha, of the world. Nabhaha, boat. Iva, like. Udadho, on the sea. Sidantya, aggrieved. Bhuri, extremely. Bharena, by the burden. Jataha, you were born. He, certainly. Atma Bhuva, by Brahma. Arthitaha, being prayed for. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation: Others say that the world, being overburdened like a boat at sea, is much aggrieved, and that Brahma, who is your son, prayed for you, and so you have appeared to diminish the trouble. Translation with repetition. Others say that the world, being overburdened like a boat at sea, is much aggrieved, and that Brahma, who is your son, prayed for you, and so you have appeared to diminish the trouble. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Brahma, or the first living being, born just after the creation, is the direct son of Narayana. Narayana, as Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, first of all entered the material universe. Without spiritual contact, matter cannot create. This principle was followed from the very beginning of the creation. The Supreme Spirit entered the universe, and the first living being, Brahma, was born on a lotus flower, grown out of the transcendental abdomen of Vishnu. Vishnu is therefore known as Padmanabha. Brahma is known as Atma Bhu because he was begotten directly from the father without any contact of Mother Lakshmi Ji. Lakshmi Ji was present near Narayana, engaged in the service of the Lord, and still, without contact with Lakshmi Ji, Narayana begot Brahma. That is the omnipotency of the Lord. One who foolishly considers Narayana like other living beings should take a lesson from this. Narayana is not an ordinary living being. He is the personality of Godhead himself. And he has all the potencies of all the senses in all parts of his transcendental body. An ordinary living begets a child by sexual intercourse, and he has no other means to beget a child other than the one designed for him. But Narayana, being omnipotent, is not bound to any condition of energy. He is complete and independent to do anything and everything by his various potencies, very easily and perfectly. Brahma is therefore directly the son of the father and was not put into the womb of a mother. Therefore he is known as Atma Bhu. This Brahma is in charge of further creations in the universe, secondarily reflected by the potency of the omnipotent. Within the halo of the universe, there is a transcendental planet known as Svetadvipa, which is the abode of the Kshirodakashayi Vishnu, the Paramatma feature of the Supreme Lord. Whenever there is trouble in the universe that cannot be solved by the administrative demigods, they approach Brahmaji for a solution. And if it is not to be solved even by Brahmaji, then Brahmaji consults and prays to Kshirodakashayi Vishnu for an incarnation and solution to the problems. Such a problem arose when Kamsa and others were ruling over the earth, and the earth became too much overburdened by the misdeeds of the Asuras. Brahmaji, along with other demigods, prayed at the shore of the Kshirodaka ocean, and they were advised of the descent of Krishna as the son of Vasudeva and Devaki. So some people say that the Lord appeared because of the prayers of Brahmaji. Thus ends the wonderful transcendental Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So in this section of Bhagavatam, we are discussing the different reasons why Krishna would have descended as cited by Queen Kunti in his wonderful prayers. And today's prayer is Bhara Batara na yanye bhuvo navo ivo dadahu sidantya bhuri bharena jato hi atma bhuvartitaha. Bhara avatara na yanye. So just to reduce the burden to the world. So if we pay just attention to the first word which is used in this verse called bhara. Bhara means burden. If you look at this picture and see the condition or the plight of the man probably who's carrying, man or lady maybe, it's overwhelming, right? So many bags, so many burden that she is carrying. And if somebody comes and offers a hand and relieves her of this load by something, even if it is one bag or half a bag, it will make a huge difference. So the question that comes is, what makes earth burdened? Is it the population growth? You know, probably I think the world population is right now at 8 billion or something, close to 8 billion, out of which India, China put together maybe about 3 billion. So is the population which is growing at so rapid pace, is it because of that Mother Earth is getting overburdened? Not really. Actually, if somebody goes and does little more calculations as to what are the heavy things that Mother Earth carries, one of the things is Mount Everest. You know, Mount Everest, for those of us who would have read or heard it in the school, is the tallest mountain on earth, and the height of that is 29,029 feet. It's about 8,848 meters, 8 kilometers basically, the height of Mount Everest. And the weight of Mount Everest is calculated to be 357 trillion pounds, or about 161 gigatons. And this estimate doesn't include the weight of the snow and ice at the top of the mountain. It's easy to calculate, it's not like it's difficult. If you know the volume, and if you know what is it that it is consisting of, this stone, if you know the specific gravity, just multiply that and you will get the weight. So this is the weight of Mount Everest, and 24% of the Earth's land mass is mountainous. So just to give you a rough estimate as to what is the weight that Mother Earth is carrying. Another example is that of Pacific Ocean. For those of us who do not know where the Pacific Ocean is, it's on the western side of Asia and on the, did I say right? No. It's on the North America's western side and the eastern side of Asia. It's a huge tract of land. How huge? Well, the Pacific Ocean is the largest and the deepest ocean basin on Earth, covering more than 155 million square kilometers, which is roughly about 60 million square miles. 60 million square miles, if you don't know how much is that, if you look at this map in this North America continent, there is this large country in which we live called the USA, and the area of US is about 3.797 million square mile. 3.797 is the square miles of US area, and Pacific Ocean is roughly 20 times of that. Roughly 15 to 20 times is the square footage of Pacific Ocean. How big, from one end to another end, east coast to west coast, that is 3.797 million square miles, and Pacific Ocean is 20 times bigger than that. So what is the weight of the water that Pacific Ocean carries? The average depth of Pacific Ocean is about 4,000 meters, which is 13,000 feet. And it contains an estimated of 187 quintillion gallons of water, which is about 50.1% of the world's oceanic water. And the Pacific Ocean weighs over 2,000 trillion pounds. This is because each cubic foot of water weighs over 62 pounds. So our scientists are genius. They have done all this calculation for us so that we can make use of this data. Just to give you what all things are there in this planet Earth. But the surprising thing is, the planet Earth is floating in the sky. How does this happen? We throw one stone in the sky and the stone falls down. But the planet Earth, which is so heavy, the Earth itself has got weight. And on top of that, we have got these mountains, Pacific Ocean, other oceans, and yet the Earth is floating. Very interestingly, Krishna says this in 15th chapter. Gama vishya cha bhutani dharayami ahamojasa. Powerful verse. Krishna says, I enter into each planet, and by my energy they stay in orbit. This is the point which is very, very important. Scientists may give us so many explanations, but without the presence of a spiritual force, matter cannot sustain. Gama vishya cha bhutani dharayami ahamojasa. Dharayami is to hold. Ahamojasa, by my energy. Gama vishya. I enter into these planets. Cha bhutani. And I sustain and hold this both material and immaterial things. Dharayami ahamojasa, by my energy. That is how they are staying in the orbit. In the purport of this verse that we just read, beautifully Prabhupada brings some powerful points. The first one being Brahma, or the first living being born just after the creation, is the direct son of Narayana. Narayana, as Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, first of all entered the material universe. If Narayana doesn't enter into the material universe, forget about the secondary creation. The first being who is born is Brahma. But for any living being to come into existence, there is a spiritual force required. And Prabhupada clarifies, without spiritual contact, matter cannot create. The principle was followed from the very beginning of the creation. This is how the creation came about. Brahma was blessed with the knowledge to do the secondary creation by the potency of the omnipotent, but only when the omnipotent came into this material world that Brahma was born. If you see, again, Prabhupada very beautifully goes on to say that the Supreme Spirit entered the universe, and the first living being Brahma was born on a lotus flower grown out of the transcendental abdomen of Vishnu. There are two names which are given, worth remembering, worth memorizing these names. One is Vishnu, known as Padmanabha. Padmanabha because from his navel this lotus sprouted, and from that lotus was born Brahma. And Brahma is known as Atmabhu because he was begotten directly from the father without any contact of Mother Lakshmiji. This is brilliant. And how is it possible? The only way that we know that a child is begotten in this material world when there is an intercourse between the husband and wife. But Prabhupada is writing, Lakshmiji was present right next to Narayana. And without any contact of Lakshmiji, Narayana begot Brahma. That is the power of the Lord. That is the omnipotency of the Lord. One who foolishly considers Narayana like other living beings should take a lesson from this. Narayana is not an ordinary living being. He is the personality of Godhead himself, and he has all the potencies of all the senses in all parts of his transcendental body. He has all the potencies of all the senses in all parts of his transcendental body. Just from his navel, he can produce a living entity. This is the power of Narayana. In the book Teachings of Queen Kunti, if you read this particular verse that we are discussing, Prabhupada gives a practical example how even the body of a small child is light when it is alive. And if it becomes dead, it becomes heavy. This is due to the disappearance of spirit soul from the child's body as soon as it dies. I was doing some research as to what happens if a person dies. What happens to his bodily weight. Even the scientists say that on an average, a dead body can be up to 2 to 3 pounds heavier than a live one. And what are the factors that can affect the weight? What are those factors? First is the person's age. Second is the body composition, what kind of a body he is having. And the third is the stage of rigor mortis. Rigor mortis is post-mortem. When some people are dead, there is a post-mortem which is performed, which we don't have a choice whether it will happen or not to us. But if it happens, then the joints become more stiff and the body becomes heavier. And God forbids, if somebody's dead body is preserved, if the near and dear ones are far away, they're not able to reach immediately, then they do something called embalming. And when that is done, if a person is weighing 250 pounds, he starts weighing 350 to 400 pounds, so roughly 100 pounds extra. Embalming is nothing but applying a solution like formaldehyde so that the body is preserved for a longer time. And that's how the body becomes heavier. See how powerful, how small, tiny spiritual spark, when it is present in us, makes so much of difference. This huge body which is weighing so much, be it a small ant or be it an elephant or be it whatever our body we have, it becomes animated because of the presence of that spirit soul. And the moment the spirit soul is gone, as Prabhupada is giving the example of that of a small child who's dead, it becomes heavier. In the purport to the verse 15.13, actually this is a very beautiful analogy which Prabhupada is giving. When we are throwing a stone and the stone is not staying and it is falling down, how is it possible that the earth, which is so heavy, is floating in the sky? Prabhupada's purport to this verse, he says, Krishna's energy is sustaining each planet just like a handful of dust. Imagine the handful of dust, if you are holding it. If someone holds that handful of dust, there is no possibility of the dust falling. But if one throws it in the air, it will fall down. Similarly, these planets which are floating in the air are actually held in the fist of the universal form of the Supreme Lord. By His strength and energy, all moving and non-moving things stay in their place. Because the universal form of the Lord, the fist of the Lord, He is holding these planets. They are staying in their orbit by the energy of the Supreme Lord, by His strength and energy. Otherwise, it would have just fallen, like the example of handful of dust. So if that is the thing, then what makes Mother Earth heavy? Prabhupada beautifully explains in the purport, in the lecture to this verse. Everything is lighter as soon as it is spiritually advanced or there is spirit. Similarly, when we will be spiritually advanced, then there will be no impediment. Now we cannot fly in the air, but when you are free from this body, your spirit soul, within a second, you can go to the Vaikuntha Loka. It is so light, within a second. Tyaktva deham punarjanmanaiti mameti. So the conclusion is, when the world becomes overloaded with the demons, non-devotees, it becomes disturbed. The Mother Earth feels load, very much load. So at that time, Krishna comes. So mind you, the load, Mother Earth doesn't feel the burden because, there is population rise. Not that, the mountains are, there are so many mountains or there are so many oceans which have got huge, gigantic weight. No, it becomes overburdened when the earth is filled with demons, non-devotees. It becomes disturbed. Question is, who are these demons? Who are these non-devotees? Do they have some horns? Do they have some teeth? Do they look very fierce, or do they look something very scary that we know, okay, these are the demons, but we are all nice human beings? That is something Prabhupada explains. We feel heavy at heart when we start giving place for all anarthas in our heart. We sometimes say, my heart is feeling heavy. And when do we feel heavy? Prabhupada is writing, when we give place for anarthas. Instead, if we fill our hearts with Krishna's words, his instructions, his thoughts, then we will also feel very light at heart. In other words, when we forget Krishna, we will be bogged down by all the troubles of this world. But when we remember Krishna, we would be able to overcome any misery very easily. This is the secret. Secret is, when our heart is filled with anarthas, it's a heavy heart. And when we fill the heart with Krishna's instructions, his thoughts, we will feel light at heart. And as Prabhupada is mentioning, when we forget Krishna, we will be bogged down by all the troubles of the world. But when we remember Krishna, we would be able to overcome any misery very easily. Question is, why are we not able to do this? Why our hearts are filled with anarthas, and knowing that, I should replace that with Krishna's instructions and thoughts and words, why am I not able to do? The answer lies in this beautiful verse. And this verse comes in the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Actually, this knowledge of Krishna consciousness is so precious, so valuable, and it is so easily available, yet it remains as a mystery to us. And that is why this chapter is befittingly titled as Most Confidential Knowledge. And we will see something so wonderful. Prabhupada explains this purport in this verse. You want, you can repeat after me. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Idam tu te guhyatamam pravakshami anasuyave jnanam vijnanam sahitam yajñātva mokshase subha. So beautiful this verse is. And this is the beginning of the most confidential knowledge. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha idam tute guhyatamam pravakshami anasuyave jnanam vijnana sahitam yajñātva mokshase subhat. I'll take just 2 minutes to read the purport, and then we will come back to this translation in this verse. Wonderful explanation by Prabhupada, not to be missed at all. Prabhupada says in the purport, as a devotee hears more and more about the Supreme Lord, he becomes enlightened. This hearing process is recommended in the Srimad Bhagavatam. The messages of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are full of potencies, and these potencies can be realized if topics regarding the Supreme Godhead are discussed amongst devotees. This cannot be achieved by the association of mental speculators or academic scholars, for it is realized knowledge. The devotees are constantly engaged in the Supreme Lord's service. The Lord understands the mentality and sincerity of a particular living entity who is engaged in Krishna consciousness, and gives him the intelligence to understand the signs of Krishna in the association of devotees. Discussion of Krishna is very potent, and if a fortunate person has such association and tries to assimilate the knowledge, then he will surely make advancement towards spiritual realization. Lord Krishna, in order to encourage Arjuna to higher and higher elevation in his potent service, describes in this 9th chapter matters more confidential than any he has already disclosed. The very beginning of Bhagavad Gita, the first chapter, is more or less an introduction to the rest of the book. And in the 2nd and 3rd chapters, The spiritual knowledge described is called confidential. Topics discussed in the 7th and 8th chapters are specifically related to devotional service. And because they bring enlightenment in Krishna consciousness, they are called more confidential. But the matters which are described in the 9th chapter deal with unalloyed pure devotion. Therefore, this is called the most confidential. One who is situated in the most confidential knowledge of Krishna is naturally transcendental. He therefore has no material pangs, although he is in the material world. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, it is said that although one who has a sincere desire to render loving service to the Supreme Lord is situated in the conditional state of material existence, he is to be considered liberated. Similarly, we shall find in the Bhagavad Gita 10th chapter that anyone who is engaged in that way is a liberated person. Now this first verse has specific significance, knowledge. Idam Jnanam refers to pure devotional service, which consists of 9 different activities: hearing, chanting, remembering, serving, worshipping, praying, obeying, maintaining friendship, and surrendering everything. By the practice of these 9 elements of devotional service, one is elevated to spiritual consciousness, Krishna consciousness. At the time when one's heart is cleared of the material contamination, one can understand the science of Krishna. Simply to understand that a living being is not material is not sufficient. That may be the beginning of spiritual realization. But one should recognize the difference between the activities of the body and spiritual activities, by which one understands that he is not the body. In the 7th chapter, we have already discussed the opulent potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his different energies, the inferior and superior natures, and all this material manifestation. Now in chapters 9 and 10, the glories of the Lord will be delineated. The Sanskrit word anasuyave in this verse is also very significant. Generally, the commentators, even if they are highly scholarly, are all envious of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even the most erudite scholars write on Bhagavad Gita very inaccurately because they are envious of Krishna. Their commentaries are useless. The commentaries given by devotees of the Lord are bona fide. No one can explain Bhagavad Gita or give perfect knowledge of Krishna if he is envious. One who criticizes the character of Krishna without knowing him is a fool. So such commentaries should be very carefully avoided. For one who understands that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the pure transcendental personality, these chapters will be very beneficial. I don't know what you understood, what you heard, how much you heard, because our attention span is so small, but this is an amazing verse. And as Prabhupada is mentioning in the purport, this is called Guhya Tamam. This is the most confidential knowledge. Actually, if one reads this purport of Prabhupada and this particular chapter, 9th chapter, because this is right in the middle and this is considered to be the most confidential knowledge, what is the confidential thing which Prabhupada is explaining? What exactly Guhya means? Prabhupada mentions that in the 2nd chapter, the difference between body and soul which is given is called the Guhya knowledge, confidential knowledge. Little bit of revelation about the Supreme Lord is also there in the 2nd chapter. But the 7th and the 8th chapter talks more about the Supreme Lord, which is considered to be more confidential. But the 9th chapter, Krishna is talking the glories of transcendental service, devotional service. Idam tute guhyatamam. What is the meaning of the word confidential? If I say, you Mataji, I'm going to tell you something very confidential. But our mind is always looking to do the gossip and find an opportunity to reveal that. But the moment I say this is very, very confidential, one thing is it has to be kept as a secret, and the second thing is we are all ears. I'm ready to hear now. This is the most confidential I'm going to share. Krishna is telling this is the idam tute guhyatamam. Another thing about confidential is, if I am sharing something confidential to you, that means I have the confidence on you that you will be able to understand that and you will keep it as a confidential thing. That confidential is coming from the word confidence. I have the confidence. So to understand this transcendental knowledge, there is a little bit of maturity which is required. Otherwise this knowledge cannot be understood. Third most important thing is, one should have the conviction that this knowledge is the most valuable. Then only he will make an effort to transmit this knowledge. That is why when Prabhupada says, he criticizes that there are so many commentaries, but they are all useless to be discarded, because people do not take it in the proper way. Only when it is taken in the parampara, coming from Krishna directly, that we understand this is most valuable, and the acharyas pass it on very nicely, perfectly, without any adulteration. That is how the pristine or the purity of that transcendental knowledge is preserved. And that is when we hear from a bona fide sampradaya, that knowledge has an impact. But the most important thing which Prabhupada is explaining in this, actually every single word, every single comma in this verse is very important. Idam tute guhyatamam pravakshyami anasuyave. So Krishna is telling, now I am going to tell you this most confidential knowledge, knowing which even if you are there in this material world, you can be aloof. You can be, free from the influence of this material world. Elsewhere in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains that this Bhagavad Gita, this material world is dukkhalayam. Dukkhalayam asasvatam. Dukkhalayam is a place of miseries. Alaya is a place and dukkha is miseries. But as in the purport, Prabhupada mentions that therefore this is called the most confidential. One who is situated in the most confidential knowledge of Krishna is naturally transcendental. He therefore has no material pangs, although he is in the material world. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, it is said that although one who has a sincere desire to render loving service to the Supreme Lord is situated in the conditional state of material existence, he is to be considered liberated. He is to be considered liberated. Power of this transcendental knowledge, if one gets it, even though he is situated in the material world, he will be liberated. To have a liberated consciousness in Dukkhalayam is impossible. How does it happen? There is a very nice verse in Bhagavatam, very beautiful verse. If you want, you can again repeat. Dehendriya prana manodhiyam yo janma pyayakshudbhaya tarsha krichre samsara dharmair abhibhuyamana smritya harer bhagavata pradhanaha. This verse actually explains our situations, how difficult it is to live in this material world, yet how we can become Jivan Mukta. Yet while living in this material world, how we can be liberated. And 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, which just we read that verse, talks about the same thing, how we can be liberated despite this most difficult material existence. What are the difficulties that we experience? The translation of this verse says, within the material world, one's material body is always subject to birth and decay. The word I've seen, this is used here is not birth and death, but birth and decay. Dehendriya prana manodhyamyo. Anybody here who's sitting and who can say that, Prabhu, nowadays, I'm growing old, and because I'm growing old, my joints have become very, very loose. It is so nice now, I can sit for a long time. Anybody who's there who can say, or is it that, all of us, as we grow old, we experience, नीचे बैठना ही मुश्किल हो जाता है. कहीं wall or we need some chair, because our joints are becoming more difficult to, the pains are becoming more difficult. Is there anybody who can say, I'm growing old now, so, I have started growing thick hair. Everywhere now, it's hairs are coming up now, I'm becoming, decay. Decay is a one thing which comes before death. The body starts decaying. Within the material world, one's material body is always subjected to birth and decay. Similarly, the life air, prana, is harassed by hunger and thirst. Kshud and janmapyaya kshud bhaya tarsha. Kshud and tarsha. If I say that this class will go on, this itself is a austerity for us. But we don't know, how constantly we are being tormented by our thirst and hunger. Khana hai, pina hai. Khana hai, pina hai. Hunger, thirst, hunger, thirst, hunger, thirst. And then, on top of that, mind is always anxious. Always anxious. If somebody is not anxious, if you tell someone there is no problem, Krishna is telling nothing will happen. How is it possible? There was somebody, one Mataji yesterday, she was telling, I am having fear. I told, there is a beautiful verse of Bhagavatam. If you hear, it says Krishna is telling, Yashyam vai shruyamanayam Krishne parama purushe bhakti rutpadyate pumsa soka moha bhayapaha. It will go away. There will be no anxiety. That becomes an anxiety. How is it possible that the mind will have no anxiety? Mind is always anxious. The intelligence is hankering for that which cannot be obtained. Always searching after something very difficult to obtain. And then what happens? The word used here is krichrei. Krichrei means the senses become exhausted. The old people, sometimes you see they're so tired, exhausted, chasing after things which cannot be obtained. All this fighting with the body which is decaying, mind which is constantly anxious. What will you do? What is the solution? Samsara dharmera abhimuhya mana. We are so bewildered in doing this samsara dharma. But smritya harer bhagavata pradhana. Person who is not bewildered by the inevitable miseries of material existence, who remains aloof from them by simply remembering the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is to be considered Bhagavata Pradhan, the foremost devotee of the Lord. Smritya Harer. Smritya Harer is to remember the Lord always. But is it possible so easily? No. It is only possible if we hear properly. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam. Only when Shravanam and Kirtanam is happening properly, that Smaranam will come. But we don't pay attention to Shravanam. And so beautifully in this purport, Prabhupada is writing only about Shravanam. This hearing process is recommended in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Message of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are full of potencies. And these potencies can be realized if topics regarding the Supreme Godhead are discussed amongst devotees. It's a fact. The message of the Lord are full of potencies, but only when it is discussed among the devotees, this potency is realized. That is why Sukadeva Goswami, when he was talking to Parikshit was hearing an assembly of devotees. Suta Goswami was addressing the sages of Naimisharanya. Take the examples, wherever it is, there is a discussion about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Unfortunately, most of the devotees in Krishna consciousness, they think hearing means if I hear, after that I will engage in transcendental loving service of the Lord. No. This knowledge itself, Prabhupada is writing, this transcendental knowledge itself is devotional service. What is that? Where did he write this? Very beginning of Idam. Now, Idam Jnanam refers to pure devotional service. Most people think bhakti means some sentimental thing. There is no place for knowledge. No, this confidential knowledge, this hearing itself is devotional service. Not that after this is done. Sometimes people think, क्या सुनना है? 1 घंटा कुछ तो बोलेगा, 15 मिनट 45 मिनट करेगा, मैं उसमें जाके घिस डालता हूँ, वो साफ कर देता हूँ, कुकिंग कर लेता हूँ, वाइंडिंग अप कर लेता हूँ. So I am doing something tangible. No. This hearing is pure devotional service. There is no difference. Prabhupada clarifies. Idam Jnanam. This refers to pure devotional service. This hearing has so much importance, so much power. That is why the word Krishna uses here is called Pravakshyami. Pravakshyami is translated by Prabhupada in the word-to-word meaning is I am speaking. But if you see the translation, Prabhupada is saying I shall impart to you this most secret wisdom. Vakshyami is to speak. But when the word pra is used before that, I'm going to speak to you something which is very specific. How to engage in devotional service. Pravakshyami. And this is, I'm going to impart this knowledge. This is done deal. This is the law. This is the most confidential knowledge which the Lord is receiving. But we are not able to take it. Why? Anasuyave. Because we have enviousness inside us. That enviousness is the root cause why this knowledge doesn't go. And Prabhupada says we are all envious of Krishna. One may say, no, Prabhu, I am envious of some devotees. I can't be envious of Krishna. But the fact is, if we were not envious of Krishna, we would have accepted every single instruction of Krishna wholeheartedly. Not what I want to take. Not this is what I like and other things I don't like, I'll not take. That's not. Anasuyave means I am ready to accept every single instruction of Krishna. Very beautifully in Bhagavad Gita, in 3rd chapter, Krishna explains this very beautiful. Ye me matam idam nityam anutishtanti manavaha shraddhavanto anasuyanto muchyante tepi karmabhi. Those persons who execute their duties according to my injunctions and who follow this teaching faithfully without envy become free from the bondage of fruitive actions. Who execute the duties according to my injunctions. This is my matam. This is what you have to follow. But in that we have our own, because of this envy, it manifests in various ways, and I will see what exactly Prabhupada is pointing. At least if we work on that one thing, we can get rid of this envy. Deep rooted, it doesn't allow the transcendental knowledge to manifest. Krishna is sharing this most confidential knowledge with Arjuna because he's anasuya way. He's free from envy. Here also, Prabhupada is in the translation, Krishna is telling that those who execute their duties according to my injunctions and who follow this teaching faithfully without envy become free from the bondage of fruitive actions. And in the purport, in the last few lines, Prabhupada mentions, in the beginning of Krishna consciousness, one may not fully discharge the injunctions of the Lord, but because one is not resentful of this principle and works sincerely without consideration of defeat and hopelessness, he will surely be promoted to the stage of pure consciousness. This is a very important principle. In the beginning of Krishna consciousness, one may not fully discharge the injunctions of the Lord. Possible. I'm trying, but it's not happening. But because one is not resentful of this principle and works sincerely without consideration of defeat and hopelessness, a devotee of the Lord is never hopeless, no matter what the circumstances. He may be trying, he's doing Krishna, he's chanting, he's not able to overcome the bad habits or some weaknesses, but he's never hopeless. He keeps on doing. He never feels that, oh, this is not working out. No. But because one is not resentful of this principle and works sincerely without consideration of defeat and hopelessness, he will surely be promoted to the stage of pure Krishna consciousness. And in the very next verse, Krishna says, if somebody doesn't follow this, but those who out of envy, again, Yeta etad abhyasuyanto nanutishtanti me matam sarva jnana vimudham stan viddhi nashtana chetasha. But those who out of envy disregard these teachings and do not follow them regularly are to be considered bereft of all knowledge, befooled and ruined in their endeavors for perfection. 3 words are used. Those who out of envy disregard the teachings and do not follow them regularly are to be considered bereft of all knowledge. Bereft. They cannot get this knowledge at all. This remains most confidential. Sometimes people read this Bhagavad Gita multiple times. I will prove how I have understood this. You cannot. Because of the envy in the heart, this knowledge will not be revealed. No matter how many times 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita one reads. Not easy. That is why this is called the most confidential knowledge. And the qualification is anasuya way. This is to be considered bereft of all knowledge, befooled. One may think I am doing very big things. I am doing some devotional service. I am this thing. I am the best. Nobody can. I know what to do. Be fooled. We will be fooled by our activities and ruined in their endeavors for perfection. Why? Because this envy in the heart. We'll take one example. Very nice example. All of us we know this story which comes in Bhagavatam. There are countless. Actually, if somebody gets blessed by the Supreme Lord, if somebody gets blessed by the spiritual master, this knowledge is so powerful and so revealing and so much it can give us. We have no idea. We think that maybe, if somebody is asking us, I'll memorize something from here and there, I'll pick some verses randomly and I'll make scholarly presentation. That's not what it is all about. It's a transformation of the heart. And it is possible if we take it in the right mood. And one of the biggest obstacle is envy in the heart, which manifests, finding faults with others, because I'm so puffed up, I'm so proud, I'm feeling I know so much, that I can, who are these people? And how that manifested in so many instances in Bhagavatam, and how those devotees overcome that. We'll see one example. We all know the story of Prithu Maharaj and Indra, right? Prithu Maharaj was trying to do 100 sacrifices. At that time, when he was doing 100 sacrifices, everybody in the world was happy except for one person. Who was that? Indra. Because Indra had done 100 sacrifices, and he was scared that if Prithu Maharaj does 100 sacrifices, then his position is in danger. So he came as a sannyasi to steal the 100th horse before being sacrificed. And he did this not just once, twice, thrice. And it enraged Prithu Maharaj so much, said, I'll kill him now. So the Brahmanas who were present for doing those sacrifices, he said, no, you don't do it. We will take care of it. We will kill him. So when all these things are going on, Brahma came and said, Prithu, what are you doing? I mean, you are a devotee. Are you supposed to kill some sannyasi, even if he's a rogue, even if he's a cheat? You're not. Be satisfied with your 99 horse sacrifices. This is the turning point of Bhagavatam. How did Prithu Maharaj agree to this instruction of Brahma? Very nicely it is given. I'll bring that verse. Because of that one thing, when he didn't do that 100 sacrifice, he agreed to that, the Lord appeared. Lord himself appeared in the arena. He would have not appeared for the 100 sacrifice performed by Indra, but he appeared for the 99th sacrifice done by Prithu Maharaj. Very interestingly. And the Lord not only appeared, he dragged Indra also along with him. Prabhupada writes, if you see those verses, one of the things which is the most important, because Prithu Maharaj submitted his envy to Brahma, that Lord became satisfied. Why envy comes in our heart is we don't accept the authority in our life. We feel all of us are equal. Who's he? I know better than him. That's where envy comes. And when the envy comes, it manifests in the form of anger, it manifests in the form of pride, it manifests in the form of fault finding. So this verse I've just got the translation, Prabhupada is writing, as King Indra was standing by, he became ashamed of his own activities and fell down before King Prithu to touch his lotus feet. But Prithu Maharaj immediately embraced him in great ecstasy and gave up all envy. It was not anger. It is written all envy against him. Actually, anger is a byproduct of envy. Envy is a byproduct of pride. And we all have that envy deep within the heart. Unless that envy is removed, and there are beautiful examples, beautiful instructions, which you have to pay attention to. Otherwise, we will see another person who's doing little better service than us, then we will feel envious of him. Though it may not be expressed in words, but or somebody has made the turban today for Krishna. Next time I'll think, okay, next week you wait, I'll make the better turban for him. I'll show you how can do. Not the right thing. Somebody is chanting 16 rounds, and then I'll say, oh, you are chanting 16, I'll chant 17 rounds. Good, you are chanting 7 rounds, but just because somebody else is chanting 16, I'll chant 17. That's not the right mood. How do we overcome this? This is the example. So Prithu Maharaj immediately embraced him in great ecstasy and gave up all envy against him for his having stolen the horse meant for the sacrifice. In the purport, Prabhupada actually mentions this, just a small 2-3 lines from the purport. Very, very powerful. Both King Indra and Maharaj Prithu were envious and angry with each other. But since both of them were Vaishnavas, or servants of Lord Vishnu, it was their duty to adjust the cause of their envy. This is also a first-class example of cooperative behavior between Vaishnavas. See, both King Indra and Maharaj Prithu were envious and angry with each other. But since both of them were Vaishnavas, or servants of Lord Vishnu, it was their duty to adjust the cause of their envy. It's a powerful statement, very powerful, because they're Vaishnavas. And this is also a first-class example of cooperative behavior between Vaishnavas. In the present days, however, because people are not Vaishnavas, they fight perpetually among one another and are vanquished without finishing the mission of human life. Mission of human life will go for a toss when somebody is having that envy in the heart. Not be able to sleep. The person about whom you are envious, he'll be having peaceful sleep, but you will not be able to have always racing mind, trying to do this, find faults, this, kaise I'll do what, no peace. There is a great need to propagate the Krishna consciousness movement in the world, so that even though people sometimes become angry and malicious towards one another because of their being Krishna conscious, such rivalry, competition and envy can be adjusted without difficulty. I want to conclude with just one very powerful message which will sum up what we have been discussing, and for that I'll share my screen. So the same thing is being spoken by Kapila Dev when he is instructing to Mother Devotee. Very powerful. This instructions, when it is given in various forms, and we see that how important that is, that we will try to work on these things. So Kapila Dev, while instructing this Sankhya philosophy to Mother Devahuti, how do I get this off? It's visible. It's 332-39. Very interestingly, Kapila Dev says, the instruction is not meant for the envious, for the agnostics, and for the persons who are unclean in their behavior, nor is it for hypocrites or for the persons who are proud of material possessions. Everything he has listed out. This most confidential knowledge, it's not meant for the envious, for the agnostics, or for the persons who are unclean in their behavior, nor is it for the hypocrites or for the persons who are proud of material possessions. And then he goes on to say further, it is not to be instructed to persons who are too greedy and too attached to family life. Maybe you are little greedy is okay, or maybe you are little too greedy and too attached to family life, nor to persons who are non-devotees and who are envious of the devotees and of the personality of God. Again the word envious is coming. Who are envious of the devotees and of the personality of Godhead. This knowledge is not meant to be. This is not to be instructed. And he sums up in one of these verses, which is very close to one of the verses that we all know. And there is a very powerful thing about devotional service which he mentions in this verse. If you want, you can repeat. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janayati Asu Vairagyam Jnanam Yad Brahma Darshanam. Only the last line is different, but the translation is very powerful. Engagement in Krishna consciousness and application of devotional service unto Krishna make it possible to advance in knowledge and detachment as well as in self-realization. So engagement and application of devotional service. Very powerful. Hearing something which is valuable needs to be applied. Without application, this Vijnana Sahitam. Vijnana is when you realize, when that thing has become real for us. When that knowledge which I got, the theoretical knowledge, I am applying. So, hearing always leads to H, then E. E is engagement. Hear and engage. Hear and engage. Engage and apply that. And it's like thunder, like the lightning and the thunder, they come almost simultaneously. Unless we hear and apply, unless we engage and apply that, it's of no use. Engagement in Krishna consciousness and application of devotional service unto Krishna make it possible to advance in knowledge and detachment as well as in the self-realization. So to conclude our time, if we really want to become light, if we want to become free from the anarthas, one of the root of that, where it stems from, is envy. As in the verse of Bhagavad Gita we were seeing, Anasuya way. And Anasuya way is possible if we surrender that sense of envy to an authority. Otherwise, very difficult. This transcendental knowledge will not penetrate. It will not be revealed. It's not that anybody can pick up a Bhagavad Gita and start giving a class I have become a very realized soul. It's not easy. 18 chapters, 700 slokas of Bhagavad Gita are available for everyone to read. But if the knowledge has to speak to us, I have to develop some good qualities. I have to, because this knowledge, like in the beginning, when this knowledge was shared by Krishna to Brahma, it was shared in the heart. He didn't bring a slate and a chalk and started writing A, E, U or A, B, C, D, nothing. This was transmitted in the heart. And as in the Bhagavad Gita and in the Bhagavatam second verse it is mentioned, Dharma projita kaitavo atro paramo nirmatsaranam satam. The nirmatsaranam is nothing but non-envious. Dharma projita kaitavo atro paramo nirmatsaranam satam vedyam vastavam atra vastu sivadam tapatrayo unmulanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni krite kimva parayarishwaraho sadyo hridi avarudhyate atra kritivi shushrushvi tatshanat. Immediately it can happen, provided we get rid of this. We can become light. The earth can become, free from the burden for which the Lord is descending. These are some of the points from this verse. I'll stop here and see if you have any questions or comments. Usually in our Krishna conscious journey, we are always assigned to some authority, right? So, not easy to accept the authority. That is how we are here in the material world, first place, because we didn't accept the authority of Krishna. We think we are perfect. We think what we are doing is always right. So, when your ego is extremely high, to accept the instruction of your authority becomes very difficult. Very difficult. But when you are able to submit at that point in time, and here, drink that bitter instruction, which may appear at bitter at that time, you'll be able to overcome. And it will reflect in our attitude and behavior. It's, you see the example of Sudama, right? When Sudama went to meet Krishna, had I been there probably in the position of Sudama, I would have thought same school, same teacher. Now you are in this big palace. I am living in a hut with a roof leaking, full of envy. But he was not thinking like that. He was thinking, oh, Krishna is so great. So that feeling of, becoming happy when somebody else is excelling in devotional service will come when we are free from envy in our heart. So one has to introspect. One has to see, why does somebody become angry at someone, or why does somebody become, try to find faults? Because there is strong envy about him. Why is he given so much this thing? And the mind becomes preoccupied with that, then the confidential knowledge will not be revealed. So if we want to get rid of the anarthas, if we want our heart to become light, the spirit to become remain in its own natural position, then we have to get rid of all this. Countless examples. There is this example of Durvasa Muni and Ambarish Maharaj. As we all know, Ambarish Maharaj engaged every single part of his body in the service of Krishna. Savai mana Krishna padara vindayor vacham sivaikuntha gunanuvarnane. Anyway, and then Durvasa Muni came and he just broke the fast of Ekadasi by taking some water, and that caused so much of anger in Durvasa Muni. So he took this thing from his hair and created a demon to kill Ambarish. Ambarish just with folded hands, he thought, maybe if this is the way I have to die, be it. No protest, nothing. And then the biggest protection for any devotee comes in the form of Sudarshan, which was waiting there. The moment that demon made an advance, immediately Sudarshan came and killed him. Not only killed him, started chasing Durvasa. It's a forced pilgrimage. Sometimes we want to go to pilgrimage to here. Now he was running. First he went to Brahma. Brahma, please protect me. He said, I can protect you, but Sudarshan is beyond my league. I can't do anything about it. He goes to Shiva, Kailash. Kailash says, yeah, I can take care of annihilation, but Sudarshan, I have no power. He goes to Vishnu. Vishnu says also, I can't do anything. The devotee with whom you had issues, you have to sort it out. Go and ask for forgiveness from that devotee. Then the heart becomes clean. That clean heart, if it is not there, pure devotional service will not happen. Devotional service in some mood of competition to prove, to show our anger, to show something else, that will go on. Only when he came in, but there also so beautiful those the verses in the translation and purport. He immediately forgave. Ambarish Maharaj immediately forgave. Rather, he was embarrassed that Durvasa Muni is falling at his feet. This is the beauty of a devotee, a Vaishnava. He forgives, no matter what it is. That forgiveness makes us light in the heart. Otherwise, the heart will remain heavy. Bhagavatam is very practical. It's not some theoretical concepts. It's not something which we have to hear and intellectualize. We have to apply it. So that engagement and application is very important. And that's what in these verses of Queen Kunti we are seeing. Wonderful verses and so beautiful purports. We'll stop here and see what further Kunti Maharani will reveal in the next verses. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.